Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Welcome, everybody, for another weekly chat with Barry here. We're going to pick up where we left off last week because I could have gone on for another half an hour. Barry brought up we were referencing the DNC, and Barry brought up the response of Tim Walz's son Gus Walz to his father when his father threw a shout out basically to his family saying that they were the most important thing, the loves of his life and everything, and his son responded in a very emotional way and very proud, and he was tearful and he was like, "That's my dad," and it was so beautiful. But some people chose to react in, I'm going to try and be polite here, in a very
derogatory.
Pardon?
Derogatory.
Oh, derogatory. Yeah, I was derogatory for sure, but just so painful. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes that anyone, regardless if there is a nonverbal learning disability or not, just any human being expressing that much love and pride in their father, to mock that, to belittle that, and to even, as I was saying to Barry earlier, to throw an insult at that child,
Right.
and make it about him being a P word, the thing that the other person likes to grab, or to say that it's, to offer them a tampon was said, basically saying his behavior was that of a woman's behavior, which is a whole separate issue here. But what we really want to talk about today is what really does make a man, a real man, a beautiful man, like the men we talk about, the men that show up authentically, that are true to themselves, that express themselves without fear of having to sort of dominate another person or belittle or bully. So that's the conversation today.
Indeed. And I say that one of the traits of a real man is he doesn't emasculate other men.
Yeah.
To just answer that point you just said, because I totally agree with you, that reactiveness and that what came up for me, so this is the way in my mind goes, is those people who were being so critical and derogatory and disrespectful of that relationship may well have been projecting their own lack of that with their own family.
Yeah. Yeah.
They may well have been coming from a place of, well, if I didn't have it, they can't have it, sort of thing. And so there's that blame. And so a real man, a truly, what I call masculine man, doesn't play the comparison game in any way, shape, or form, and certainly doesn't put themselves less than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also doesn't try and demean other people to make the other person less than them. So like we said last week about that power struggle, a lot of things that what took men do, because it's one of the men's innate natures is being competitive, is trying to be one up on other men. And truly an authentic man, a real man, so to speak, doesn't need that. There's no need to fight or compete against, because as you also said last week, being spiritual beings having a human experience, we are all equal. So it doesn't matter how big your muscles are or how fast your car is or anything else. It doesn't make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. And I love what you were bringing up. I love these conversations with you because you I mean, that's the beauty of, that's why I wanted two people here. I don't want to just be listening to myself talk. I want different perspectives now, different ways we see things. And one quality that you do bring to this conversation, Barry, which I love, is sometimes an outside of the box, in the sense of outside of my box, I should say, not the box, but look at things in a certain way that I might not have entertained. And especially on this subject, here I'm talking about what makes a man a real man. What are they made of? Well, hey, I'm a woman, but I share it from my perspective. And it's interesting that you were saying that maybe some of these people's reactions were because they didn't have it. Well, as a girl that grew up without a father, I I definitely didn't have it. But when I
Hmm.
witnessed that, when I witnessed what I consider a real man, a man of integrity, and just, oh my God, I mean, I could go on and on and on about Tim Walz. I think he's just so incredible on every level. Just, and you can just tell the respect he gets from everybody, from past students to past, football players, or when he was a coach, or people he served with, or whatever it is, people that are coming out to say that this man is authentic, he's real, he walks the walk, none of it is fake. Um, that's the father I wish I'd had. And when I see that somebody else has got that type of father, I am just brought to tears myself, because I think the world will be a better place, and we're going to have better men in this world when that is the type of man that that um, that brings up a boy, and a daughter. His daughter will not find herself, I can guarantee this, she will not find herself in an abusive relationship,
No.
because he's modeled what it means to be a man of integrity, to be a man that honors women. And she will seek that out in her relationships. Or she may not be a man. Whoever she's in relationship with, it will be somebody that will be respectful and honoring, because that's the model that she had growing up. And the same thing with his son, whoever he ends up being in a relationship with or loving, he will know how to be a real man, a man
Yeah.
that is compassionate and loving and caring and can show his damn emotions.
This is the biggest gift that was given in a way from that speech, was the fact that he showed that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to show bare naked love for his family, because it doesn't make him weak, which some people look at. One of the biggest challenges men face is the fear of showing weakness. And so to see him, you know, present what looks like weaker things based on what the paradigm, what men are supposed to be and supposed to be around, rather than what real men are, is it showed true, authentic male power in a way, because the power of masculinity, the power of true maleness, that's an interesting way of playing it, is being able to express emotions without giving up who we are. And he did that in a way that's so beautiful. And his son's response was just so natural and so real. And yeah, I mean, even, I did grow up with a father, and I was definitely grateful my parents were together and all the things that happen in a relationship, but still, I wouldn't mind upgrading. And that's like, because he was such a great model. And of course, I'm playing with that one. But the reality is, everyone has their own relationship paradigm they watch in their parents as they get brought up. We talked about this many times in the episodes before. But seeing that out in the world as a very clear leadership model of what men can be like is such a gift to so many men who didn't know they could claim that for themselves. And there are men who basically have never been willing to show themselves that much vulnerability, that maybe they can say, you know what, maybe I can relax a little bit and be less so constricted, because I got to be so together and so powerful and so dynamic and so getting things done, that I can't trust myself to be that vulnerable.
Mhm.
So there's so much available to all of us. I feel, all the men, especially from what he did on stage, what he said, and how he talks, and how he himself. He's one of those archetypes in a way for us.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more with all of that. And yeah, I mean, he, hopefully will, my hope is that they are elected, and that he will be a role model for all men growing up in this world. Men that may have fathers and may not have fathers, or fathers that are demonstrating the other, that what we talked about last week, the power struggle, the men that are fearful of of another person, so therefore have to dominate and control and manipulate, or whatever it is they're doing, that
Yeah,
he can touch men's lives. I mean, there was this huge sort of men's groups came about in the 80s. I remember it was a massive thing. I mean, there was so many wonderful books written about sort of toxic masculinity, which we've done a show about, and how, I mean, toxic to not just to women but to men. I mean,
yeah,
the role that was sort of given to them and told, you have to stay within these confines to be a real man, to break that open and to just say no. You can cry, you can show your vulnerability, you can share with your partner. The stress. I mean, both men and women go through incredible amounts of stress in raising a family and running a household. And it's not just. But I also know there's a lot of men that feel that their partners don't appreciate that they carry that mantle like it's just theirs to carry, and it's not. It's if you're feeling that way, express that to your partner. Say,
Yeah.
I have this. I feel the burden that it's on me to make this. To protect you and provide for you. I mean, by sharing that, it doesn't become all yours. And certainly in this day and age too. I mean, not most, I should say, but well, a great many families, whether it's more or less than I don't know, but are dual income families. That is a shared burden. And in the same way that what was usually referred to as sort of a woman's role of being domesticated and taking care of the house, now again with two parents working, they both come home and they do their chores, they divide them equally, and they discuss them. So I think in many ways, it's very, very important that men feel safe sharing their vulnerability, sharing their concerns, and women allowing them to do that and to not feel afraid that your man is going to fall apart because he's expressing the stress he's under.
Right. It's huge. And I think for me, frankly, there's opportunities here. I mean, this is work I'm doing because my personal journey was definitely, I came late to the party in terms of the men's work. I didn't start that until the mid 2000s, but it was such a piece that I needed to get to recognize my wholeness, to become back to that place, because I didn't have a model up to that point from the men around me that showed me that it was safe to be that way. And I'm so grateful for the teachers and for the relationship that kicked my butt into gear to go seek that work out, because it changed everything about my own life, and the way I teach and what I talk about with other men is such an important thing for us to recognize as we mature and as we grow as men and we evolve into being what I would call more authentic men, is that we can be vulnerable. We can be sharing enough to not keep everything bottled up. One of the biggest challenges, and it's one thing that's going on now, I know, I've been studying about this recently, is the loneliness pandemic that's been going on, especially around men. Women going through it too, but men are going through it just as much because a lot of men don't know how to express their emotions, don't feel safe, and don't know how to trust other men. And frankly, the more that men ourselves can become each other, like our brother's keeper, so to speak, to be able to trust each other and support each other, and to basically just be a sounding board and be a resource they can come to so that we don't feel so alone. One of the biggest challenges for men, because women generally tend to find themselves finding there are other women to hang out with or do other things where they don't feel quite so alone. But for men, it's like we bear, we bear the cross, so to speak. We carry the burden ourselves, like you were saying earlier. Not sharing that we don't, we're taking care of everything. We feel a bit like we're doing more responsibility and we don't know what to do with it. We feel we need to just vent and feel like we get support. So the the safety that our partner can give us, but also the safety that other men can give us when we can trust each other, is a place I think we want to go. I hopefully we can grow into that as we move forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that I don't know. I keep thinking about Gus Waltz showing his feelings and his pride and his emotions and being belittled by that, by doing that, or the people belittling what he did, and you're right. I mean, I really hope there is that paradigm shift where all men will view that as strength, not weakness.
Absolutely, it
Yeah,
is strength.
it is strength. Well, 100% it's strength, but as you said, men need to support other men in that. I mean, a woman can do it. I did it with my sons completely. My sons are 100%, very emotional. Not emotional in this, but just I don't mean up and down emotions, but so deep and expressive on what they're feeling, what they think. They are so. I mean, one of my sons in particular, he's written off a lot of his very macho friends he grew up with. That he's like he's grown into I don't even know who this guy is anymore. It's like he really is particular about the type of men that he hangs out with. He doesn't want to
Right.
hang out with macho guys that belittle women. He just doesn't. He doesn't get it. He doesn't respect it. He doesn't want to be around it. But that's
Yeah.
all very well as a woman bringing up sons that are free to express their emotions and their feelings, and they feel empowered by it. But I just like what you were saying earlier, it's so important that men feel that support from other men, just not just from women. It's got to come
Hmm.
from other men too. And for everybody to just sort of, it's almost like sort of bearing their soul and like, you go first, okay, now I'll go. It's like it really is encouraging each other, and that's what these men's groups offer. They offer that
Yeah.
place where men can test the waters about how safe it is to be vulnerable. Will their pack, will their tribe accept them? Or will they be kicked out for it?
Hmm. It's one of the things you said. One of the things that's beautiful about your sons is the term I often use is emotional maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it sounds like the way you've raised your sons intentionally is that they have grown to understand what emotional maturity is, and they won't settle for less than that from anyone around them,
Yeah.
particularly from other men. And I agree with that. That's absolutely one of the key strengths. And yes, being vulnerable isn't a weakness, because the other thing I learned, this is going back again many years ago too, was I discovered that true vulnerability is true strength, rather than hiding vulnerability as strength. Because when we hide it or stuff it down, we basically create this shell that's like glass. It doesn't have strength to support us, and so it can get shattered, and then we get destroyed. So when we have true vulnerability, there's no need for protection, because in that vulnerability we are infinitely strong.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about a story, and I'm thinking, I don't know, should I share this or not?
Go on.
I'm just going to just say it, but it's of somebody that I'll keep it broad, but there was a couple I know that were very old school, very traditional, much older, and it always looked like the man was in control of the relationship, and he certainly
Hmm.
acted that way. It very sort of patriarchal. Women were subservient. Women served. The men, head of the household. All that incredibly traditional thing. And I remember witnessing when the wife got ill, and she had some type of melanoma, and to witness this man, this macho man, fall apart. I mean, literally fall on the floor, wailing, crying. It was such a shock. And it was so beautiful to see the truth of their relationship. He was lost without her. He was terrified that this, thank God they both lived to a ripe old age. Um, but he was terrified that he would lose her. And I remember witnessing it and thinking, oh my God, all this BS I've listened to for years and witnessed and felt so sorry for the woman in
Yeah.
the relationship, thinking that she was being so undermined and belittled and disrespected. Not, I mean, there was love and respect, but still the
Hmm.
roles were so so tightly. This is my role. I'm in control. You're this. But to see the truth, when the the diagnosis came through, to see the truth of that relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's often what's going on. I really do. I think there are a lot of very, very weak men, fearful men, that play the role of being in charge, being in control. But at their core, they do know that they are incredibly vulnerable to losing their partner,
Hmm.
and that there is equality in that relationship, even when it doesn't show.
It's true. And the thing is, there's a beauty in that as well as in the pain, but recognizing there's such a vulnerability in the same place. The thing I remember just flashing back on was I think it was a movie, maybe a TV documentary called The Masks We Wear, or Masks We Were Born With. It was a story about boys, basically, because the boys are basically, as boys, we are inundated by things like don't be a sissy, you know, man up, big boys don't cry,
Yeah.
don't be a girl. All these different things that we were told that basically put us in a place where we couldn't show emotion. So for most boys slash men, especially who grew up, um, definitely I would say baby in the boomer generation, probably the ones after that, but maybe the most current generation hasn't had that experience. But certainly the older generations, if you're like 40 years old and up from there, we didn't necessarily have the space, the framing, or the reflection that it was okay to be vulnerable and to be expressive. So we had to keep it together, because that was what a man was supposed to do. Again, not what a real man is, but what a man was supposed to be based on the rules of the time.
Mhm.
And so our training, for want of a better word, or the imprinting we got from all the things we were told, meant that showing emotion was like, it would be something we'd leak out. It wouldn't be something we could express with comfort or with honesty or with integrity. And so what you said about that couple, him showing that bare naked vulnerability because he couldn't hold it back, was maybe his biggest freedom step he'd ever taken.
Yeah, it was beautiful. We all it was just it was so beautiful. It was really like, oh my God, this is the truth. This is the
Yeah,
truth of the relationship. All that other stuff, all the words, all the actions, all that bluster, all the puffed up, beating of the chest and everything like that. It was all just a front.
yeah,
So it is. It's incredible, and I do. I mean, as I said, there were definitely an older generation, but there is there's still that. I mean, we see it today. There's still that mentality. I think I was sharing with you that you know somebody was sharing with me about a relationship. Um, um, it was a client talking about another client's relationship and about how observing it, she was afraid of her friend being in a role that was so submissive. And there are, I mean, they say right now there are a lot of young men that are feeling the incels, that whole thing about sort of if I'm not number one, if I'm not conquering, if I'm not earning, I can't get a girl. And there's this mentality that I don't know where they're getting it from. I mean, it's certainly, as I said, it's certainly not something that I see in my children and in my friends' children, because I think we've empowered our boys, certainly the group that I surround myself with, to be all of who they are, to express all of themselves. But there is this generation of young men coming up in this world that feel angry, lonely, isolated, and they're not going to be the 1%. They're not going to have the power, the money, the wealth, and what they believe attracts women. And
right.
it's such a shame because maybe there are some women that are attracted to that, but there are an awful lot of women that just want a real man, a vulnerable man, a man that cares and is strong enough to share their feelings and their
Hmm.
vulnerabilities. I mean, that in my world is what is desired more than the flashy man with the big muscles and the muscle cars and the wealth and the
Right.
power and the house or what. I mean, it's just so. I mean, again, I know that there are some people that are attracted to that and want that, which is fine. You know what you want, go for it. But there are enough women out there and young girls out there that they want a real partner.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing that I think we're evolving into, is because women are learning to ask for what they really want and to hold out for what they really want, and also to discover what it is they truly want as well, rather than just again buying in the paradigm of what they've been told. And so as they step into a new paradigm, I think the men also step into a new paradigm where the men are going, okay, I can be this way now, that it is respectable, is respectful, and I can meet a woman where she is and not give up anything. And frankly, this is where I'm glad we're moving into, because it's part of the paradigm shift that is so needed for our culture, where men can be powerful and masculine and get things done and make things happen, and at the same time be vulnerable and be cared for as well in a way that is very beautiful. It's not a place where you got to tough it out, make it happen no matter what, and the woman's going to trail behind you, carrying working at coattails. I mean, that was the thing. We talked about this a bit offline last week about the trad wife term that's been coming up recently, where women are basically, some of the new generation apparently are started buying this whole belief that they should be like the old traditional wife, which is, well, going backwards, frankly, for me, because it's not about women being empowered. It's about women being trailing behind their husband, so to speak, or be the stay at home wife while the man's out doing the work, which is for me a step backwards.
That's really interesting. I think this is another show in itself, but I don't see it as. I think the literally break it that word down, housewife down. You're the wife that stays at home and runs the house. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything demeaning about that role. And I know couples that have chosen to have children. One couple in particular that they both were working in the film industry, but they decided between them, and they were both very successful in their own rights. One was a producer, one was a cinematographer, but they agreed that they really wanted a stay-at-home parent. So they
Hmm.
looked at their sort of financial situation and they figured out who could actually maybe, who was in the best, not even just financially, because they were probably very equal in what they made money wise, but who was more comfortable staying home and being a very proud stay at home parent. Somebody that ran the house and took care of the child,
Hmm.
did the homework, and did all the things that that involves. And it ended up being the husband that stayed at home. And my friend, the wife, continued to work, and she had such respect for her husband because she was like, I couldn't do what he's doing. I couldn't do it. And we decided between us whose personality fitted better into that role. So what that was the decision that they made was based on that. So I think that a traditional or trad wife, if it's doing a traditional role of staying at home and raising a family and taking care of a home, if that's what you want, and your husband or partner or whatever, or whoever you're in partnership with, respects that role and values that role and doesn't see it as less than their role because they're going out in the world and maybe bringing a paycheck home, great, do that. But it's when it's looked down upon by the other
Hmm.
partner that I'm the one out in the world bringing the money in, it's my money, that
Right.
is when it's just disastrous, I think, to me personally.
This is what, well, and just to be transparent, I've seen the term around. I've not done the research on what it's based upon. I think it's some new thing that is a um, a view of an old paradigm through a rose tinted glass type viewpoint.
Mm.
So I'm not exactly. So maybe we'll talk about it in another episode because it's definitely something where it's bringing up some interesting points of conversation, certainly.
All right, well,
And
we'll definitely do our homework and we'll talk.
there we go.
Sounds like a
So,
good one.
but to get back, yeah, to get back on the topic at hand, so we're talking about men at this point, not the women. But I know I jumped into that one. I mistake, jumped over there. The opportunity, I think, for men's, because I ran men's groups myself back in the 2000s, and there was something so beautiful about being that place where men could come to. But the interesting thing was, because most of us men, is because we've been so encrusted with the way that we are, it takes a while to take down those walls and become more vulnerable with other men. But if you're a man out there who is feeling a bit lonely and being left out, if you find other men to be together with, whether it's an organized group or just you and some friends, is build a framework that has some structure to it that allows you to have a safe place to meet and a safe place to be vulnerable with each other, because you might discover that it'll help you heal stuff you didn't know you need healing. And I think it's a great gift to give to yourself and to give it to your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And to also, as you were speaking, I was thinking to follow role models. I mean, again, going back to the DNC, just looking
Hmm.
at that sort of, potentially we will have the first man. You know, I mean, what an incredible thing that is to see,
Yeah.
to
A, woman-
witness. Oh,
a man in support of his wife. Yeah.
exactly, and look at him. I mean, he's a hugely successful lawyer in his own right. He's not
Hmm.
some sort of downtrodden, dismissed husband. There's sort of, he's a strong man in his own right. But again, what I also loved about that was, his vulnerability to be goofy, to
Yes.
share. Please, it's like this macho image that some men think they have to have of like, it's like he's telling the whole world. Now, yeah, I made a really goofy phone call at 8:30 in the morning that I am reminded of every year.
Anniversary. Yeah.
I have to just add one other thing that makes me think that these men are incredible men. It was the fact that his first wife helped produce the video of him with her son. The fact that that blended family, that's another show we need to do, is blended families, but that there was no ego there.
No.
It was just so beautiful. You could just tell it was about honoring the family unit, whatever it looked like, and contributing to it. And I just thought that was just so beautiful.
More content to talk
A couple of shows to follow up on here: the Trad Wives, and I've already forgotten the other one. That's
blended families.
Blended Families. That's right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us again, and we will see you all next week. Thanks,
See you
Barry.
next week. Thank you, Del. See you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.